listening to Unravel with Natalie Denise.
What's up, everybody? There's a good reason. I always forget to turn that off. There's a good reason why I'm late. That's because I was waiting for these clips to upload fully about President Biden's SOTU, State of the Union address. State of the Union, yeah, State of the Union address. And boy, did it not disappoint. Did it not disappoint? It didn't. What's up, chat? What's going on? I see you guys. What's up, JB? What's up? Hot Richard chat. Okay. Keem, what's going on? Thank you so much for modding for me today. Mark, what's going on? Santa Fe. All right. Yeah, so Biden just completed his State of the Union address. And again, it did not disappoint us because he just babbled on with all of this crazy stuff. I mean, crazy stuff. Hey, what's up, the Independent? What's going on? Yeah, Biden is just going off the rails, man. And there's some really crazy gestures as well coming from Nancy Pelosi. I'm telling you, this stuff just never seems to disappoint us. It really, really never seems to disappoint us. Did I did it. I left off of Psalm 10. You know what? We've been going through the Bible. Let's actually go through Daniel. Let's go through Daniel because that's what I've been studying. I kind of took a pause from the Psalms. Daniel first. Let's take a glimpse at Daniel. That's what I want to start off with our podcast. We kind of go through a little bit of scripture before we go on to the other stuff, just to kind of feed our spirits here. So let's go ahead and start off with that. Oh, by the way, I voted in the Texas primaries, and unfortunately, I didn't get what I wanted because Abbott won, and he's going up against Beto O'Rourke, which, I mean, fortunately, it's kind of like the lesser of two evils because I don't foresee that Beto will win unless they really rig it up. And actually, that's something that we need to fear in Texas because there was some recent legislature that was passed. Gosh darn, I actually did a podcast with somebody that I haven't gotten around to upload. There was some recent legislature that was passed, and it forbids like certain Texas counties, I think it's like Harris County, from examining the voting audits or something like that, which is pretty dang scary. But yeah, sorry, I was laughing at a meme that my mom just sent me. My mom's with it, y'all. She's with the times. So let's actually go ahead and get started. Yeah, so I voted today. Unfortunately, I didn't get what I wanted or what I think a lot of Texans wanted. So we're just going to start off with a little bit. All right, so we're going to start off with Daniel. In the third year, this is the book of Daniel, chapter 1. In the third year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem. Okay, why is this important? Are we not living in Babylon right now with everything that's going on? Like, are we not living in Babylon right now? It says he came and besieged it, and the Lord delivered Jehoiakim, the king of Judah, into his hand, meaning that the Lord allowed this to happen. He allowed the besiege and the stealing of the throne to happen. Does that sound familiar? Into his hand, along with some of the articles of the temple of God. These carried off to the temple of God, his God, Babylonia, and put in the treasure house of his God. So basically, King Nebuchadnezzar, Daniel, by the way, is a son of King David. And it's actually pretty ironic because we've been going through the Psalms. So Nebuchadnezzar basically besieged a city. He took it over. He stole the throne, and God allowed it. And Babylon, if you guys don't know, was like very pagan, very like our culture. Like it just went off the rails. They went doing whatever they wanted to do. They worshipped multiple gods. And then listen to this. The king ordered Ashpenaz, the chief of his court officials, to bring into the king's service some of the Israelites from the royal family and the nobility, young men without any physical defects. So these were tens. They were the complete package. They were handsome, showing aptitude for every kind of learning, well-informed, quick to understand, and qualified to serve in the king's palace. He was to teach them the language and the literature of the Babylonians. So basically indoctrination. That's what that means. Like these well-meaning dudes, all of a sudden they get their kingdom taken over by King Nebuchadnezzar, and King Nebuchadnezzar's like, give me the creme de la creme of your land. And they call them the wise men, like later on, but these young men, they get indoctrinated. They're being told, you've got to learn all of our culture, our language, all of these things. The king assigned them daily amounts of food and wine from the king's table. They were to be trained for 3 years, and after that, they were to enter the king's service. Among those who were chosen were from Judah, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah. By the way, these names are godly names, and they change it later. The chief official gave them new names. To Daniel, to Belteshazzar, to Hananiah, Shadrach, and Mishael, Meshach, and to Azariah, Abednego. But Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and wine. Now, why is that important also? Because back then in the Old Testament, they had to eat kosher food, right? So the Babylonian food, he didn't know if this meat was sacrificed to other gods, if they defiled the meat or the food, and who knows what it would have done. And he asked the chief official for permission not to defile himself. Now, God had caused the official to show favor and compassion to Daniel, but the official told Daniel, I'm afraid of my lord, the king, who has assigned your food and drink. Why should he see you looking worse than the other young men your age? The king would then have my head because of you. It's funny to me that the official is over here telling Daniel, look, you're going to look worse if you don't eat the royal food. And thinking like the Babylonians, just like they thought so much of themselves. They just thought so much of, like, they had the philosophy, they had the ways of thinking. They thought that they had it down to a pact, even down to the food. And so Daniel basically made a request. He said to the guard, can you please test us for 10 days that we only eat vegetables and drink water? And he did. He allowed them. It says here in verse 15, at the end of the 10 days, they looked healthier and better nourished than any of the young men who ate royal food. So the guard took away their choice of food and the wine they were to drink and gave them vegetables instead. These 4 young men, God gave knowledge and understanding of all kinds of literature and learning, and Daniel could understand visions and dreams of all kinds. And I think this part is actually like we could do a whole podcast on just verse 17, because do you ever have like these interpretational dreams, or you have these visions and you don't quite know what to do with it or like what it means? A lot of times, I would actually start writing those down. And I actually did last night. I had a dream and I wrote it down because I was like, what was that dream about? That's crazy. But I feel like God, we just don't kind of get brushed up on our own spiritual gifts. And that might be one of them. You might have some really prophetic dreams and visions, but you just kind of forget it. We just kind of bypass it. And I'm talking to myself here because in the past, I've just kind of like, it was, that was an interesting dream, but I never like thought anything of it. Like one time I do remember this one very, very specific dream. I need to go write this down. I dreamt of a red cow. And I don't know what this dream is. To this day, I know the red cow is biblical. Like there's a biblical meaning to the red cow. Actually, let me write this down right now. And it was just in a field. It was so strange. It was just like this red cow. And I know red cows exist, but there was something like very prophetic about it. And I don't know the meaning to it quite yet, but it seems sacrificial for whatever meaning. But anyway, verse 17, these 4 young men, God gave knowledge and understanding of all kinds of literature and learning. Notice that it said God gave them this understanding. It's kind of like they were fast-tracked and God gave them the ability to like absorb the understanding of all of this stuff that they were impending on them. And it said, and Daniel could understand visions and dreams of all kinds. At the end of the time set by the king to bring them into his service, the chief official presented them to Nebuchadnezzar. The king talked with them, and he found none equal to Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. I think this is important to also pinpoint because remember, they just changed their names, and these were pagan names that they changed it to. They were attributive to like the pagan gods that they worshipped. And so the word actually goes back to their godly name, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So they entered the king's service, and every matter of wisdom and understanding about which the king questioned them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and the enchanters in his whole kingdom. Isn't that crazy? Like, so back, and this also happened in Exodus with the Pharaoh. He had all these sorcerers and magicians and astrologers. It's literally parallel, like these paganistic types of rulers where they have to have these people who interpret dreams for them or interpret certain events. And they need it. Note that they need a group of these people. They need magicians and enchanters and astrologers. It doesn't say astrologers just yet. It'll say it later on. But isn't that funny that, and I don't mean to offend people, but we should really take note of that, because I feel like we depend on astrology and these interpretations and mediums and stuff like that, when really there's one God. And if we just tap into that one God, because he's God no matter what, doesn't matter what we think, God is God no matter what. He can give us the power of spiritual gifts and interpretations if we depend on his source and not on the other source. But, I just find that significant because it's like these 4 dudes who just entered the king's service, who were actually blessed by God with all these spiritual gifts, all of a sudden they became 10 times better. And God likes to show out 10 times better. These people have been doing this all their lives. The magicians, the astrologers, the enchanters, all these people, they've been doing this for as long as they can remember. And these people just enter in the king's service after 3 years of, indoctrination or learning their culture, and they were 10 times better. And then it says, and Daniel remains there until the first year of King Cyrus. And King Cyrus was the one who liberated all of this buffoonery. So anyway, that is our scripture for the day. Daniel, book of Daniel, the first book. Let's jump into the thing that you've been waiting for, the State of the Union address. Head, shoulders, knees, and corruption. Knees and corruption. Oh, by the way, this is funny. Look at this. So this news station in Pittsburgh, WTAE TV. Let's just begin with this before we get into the State of the Union. Oh, wait, before we do, there's some interesting comments. Let me take a look here. Jeffrey said, I almost died at work last week. 800 pounds of plexiglass fell on a guy at work, crushing him. But 30 seconds before I saw it happen, and we told him not to rush 3 times. Whoa, Jeffrey, I'm glad you're okay. What's up, One's Purpose? Thanks for tuning in. And then you said, I was almost on his side, and I could have been crushed too. I always see things before they happen. I'm happy to be here right now, straight up. Jeffrey, we are too. Bless you for being here. You're very correct. God saved me the other day. So sorry to hear that. Glad you're here. All right, take a look at this. WTA TV in Pittsburgh made a slight error while reporting a disturbing crime Tuesday night. Look at what happened when they reported this. Let's take a look. This was by the way, this was a mistake. Okay.
It's not clear what may have been taken, and no arrests have been made.
A 71-year-old man is accused of inappropriately touching a 12-year-old girl.
They show a picture of Biden
In West Mifflin Sunday afternoon. According to court,
it's not clear what.
Take a look at that again. Look.
And no arrests have been made.
A 71-year-old man is accused of inappropriately touching a 12-year-old girl at the Walmart in West Mifflin Sunday
shows a picture of Biden.
According to,
I don't know if that was a mistake or if that was intended, but isn't that crazy? And then apparently there's new footage of 9/11. Okay, let's go to the State of Union address. Okay. Here's the first gaffe of the night. Listen to this. Listen to this. Last year, Coco kept us apart. This year, we are finally together again. Listen to this.
Last year, COVID-19 kept us apart. This year, we're finally together again. Tonight,
They clap.
tonight, we meet as Democrats, Republicans, Independents, but most importantly, as Americans, with the duty to one another, to America, to the American people, to the Constitution.
Gosh. Okay. Next one. Okay, so he announced tonight, he says, tonight I'm announcing that we will join our allies in closing off American airspace to all Russian flights, further isolating Russia and adding additional squeeze on their economy. He has no idea what's coming. Yeah, sure, Biden. I'm pretty sure Putin is shaking in his space boots right now, in his Kremlin space boots right now. Listen to this.
Department of Justice is assembling a dedicated task force to go after the crimes of the Russian oligarchs. We're joining with European allies to find and seize their yachts, their luxury apartments, their private jets. We're coming for your ill-begotten gains. And tonight, I'm announcing that we will join our allies in closing off American airspace to all Russian flights, further isolating Russia and adding additional squeeze on their economy. He has no idea what's coming.
He has no idea what's coming, he said. Again, I'm pretty sure he's really shaking in his little space boots. It says here, our forces are not going to Europe to fight in Ukraine, but to defend our NATO allies in the event that Putin decides to keep moving west. For that purpose, we have mobilized American ground forces, air squadrons, ship deployments to protect NATO countries. Now, I'm just going to say this. I believe that I think Putin's not done. I don't think he's stopping at Ukraine, to be honest with you. There is a lot contained in his essay, as I keep talking about, since I published that one video. I do not think that he is done. I think that he's keeping his eye on several prizes right now. And I think things are going to get really spicy if that does happen, because if we do, which we would, if NATO needs to, if NATO takes a move, I don't even want to imagine what the heck could happen, but I don't think that Putin is done.
And our allies will defend every inch of territory that is NATO territory with the full force of our collective power. Every single inch. Our forces are not going.
All right. Now we're getting to the funny parts. This is, I honestly, how is this the resident in chief right now? Listen to this. Putin may circle Kiev with tanks, but he'll never gain the hearts and souls of the Iranian people. Listen to this.
We stand with you. Putin may circle Kiev with tanks, but he'll never gain the hearts and souls of the Iranian people. He'll never extinguish their love of freedom, and he will never weaken the resolve of the free world.
Oh gosh, I mean,
we stand.
Iranian people, and then I don't even know. I don't even know what he's trying to say. A pound of Ukrainian people, proud people, pound for pound, ready to fight with every inch of energy that they have. Guys, literally, again, I have to just reiterate this. Everything is not what it seems with the media. Okay. All of these stories from left bias to right bias, everybody is pumping up this narrative that, Ukraine is winning, Zelensky's a hero, and, the citizens are going to take arms and they're going to fight this. And they might find like 3 citizens that are like, yeah, let's fight or whatever. But this, I mean, compared to the ratio that they're surrounded by with the Russian forces, I mean, that's all they can. That's their last string is the propaganda. That's all they can do. But listen to this. I mean, listen to this.
Unleashed violence and chaos. But while he may make gains on the battlefield, he'll pay a continuing high price over the long run. and a pound of Ukrainian people, proud people, pound for pound, ready to fight with every inch of energy they have. It's unleashed violence and chaos. But while he may make gains on the battlefield, he'll pay a continuing high price over the long run. And a pound of Ukrainian people, proud people, pound for pound, ready to fight with every inch of energy they have.
I mean, what is it? The 25th Amendment? Okay. And then he talks about securing the border. And I find this very interesting because not because of what he's saying, because of course we expect the pandering to happen. But I think, I don't know. Yeah, here it is. Then they flash it towards Ted Cruz. And I'm just like, bro, can we just stop? Can we just stop with the pandering, with the, well, you know, we got to unite and all these things? Like, there's no, how do you even remotely agree? And remind you that Ted Cruz actually caved in a couple months ago about J6, talking about it was a very violent riot and all these things. What are the things we've been talking about here on this podcast? We're not calling it the R word. We're calling it the event. I mean, it's absolutely amazing to me that conservatives like cave so easily just for saving face. There's no room for saving face right now. Take a look at this.
If we're to advance liberty and justice, we need to secure our border and fix the immigration system. As you might guess, I think we can do both.
I doubt it. Okay. And then in this next one, to our younger transgender Americans, I will always have your back as your president so you can be yourself. And listen to this last part. Reach your God-given potential. It's, again, astounding.
For our LGBTQ plus Americans, let's finally get the Bipartisan Equality Act to my desk. The onslaught of state laws targeting transgender Americans and their families. It's simply wrong. I said last year, especially to our younger transgender Americans, I'll always have your back as your president so you can be yourself and reach your God-given potential.
A lot of people have been saying Wag the Dog. I'm going to have to go watch that movie, Wag the Dog. I don't think I've ever seen it, to be honest with you. I have seen Die Hard. Actually, let me highlight this comment right here. Jeffrey says, boop, 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 boop. This is Wag the Dog, Die Hard 3, and Die Hard 4. This is the I word robbery, illuminate. You guys know that word. A robbery by cyber attacks on the United States. Actually, I've been thinking a lot about Live Free, Die Hard. That's the name of the Die Hard 4 one, I think. It's with that dodgeball guy, right? I've been thinking a lot about that movie recently, a lot, especially also combined with Mr. Robot. If you guys didn't catch that series, it's a really good series to catch as well. Okay, so let's take a look at this clip right here.
Our LGBTQ plus Americans, let's finally get the Bipartisan Equality Act to my desk. The onslaught of state laws targeting transgender Americans and their families. It's simply wrong. I said last year, especially to our younger transgender Americans, I'll always have your back as your president so you can be yourself and reach your God-given potential.
I mean, my goodness. Here in Texas, by the way, they just passed, what did they pass? They passed legislation to forbid that they're going to consider that child abuse in Texas. Again, it's so disappointing to talk about in Texas because I know we can do a lot more, depending on the leadership. But like I said earlier, we're just gonna have to pick our poison right now because at least we're making strides. It's only to pander though. The executive orders in Texas I'm just being biased because I'm in Texas. Executive orders in Texas don't really take effect of anything. They like the Texas orders for the mandates. It does nothing. It's a piece of paper. It's a letter. It doesn't do anything. Companies are still able to run over their employees, if they opt to put a mandate over their job. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I don't know why I mentioned that, but yeah, that's I wish that we could do more because it should be considered abuse. And then this next one, POTUS. I've ordered more pills than anyone in the world has. I don't even know.
I've ordered more pills than anyone in the world has. Pfizer's working overtime to get
the next one. No, let's go to my profile because there's this like weird gesture that Nancy Pelosi did. So Nancy Pelosi, I don't know what part this was, but Nancy Pelosi, she makes this weird gesture and it's in silence, so I'm not even going to play the sound because there's no sound. But she makes this like weird ass gesture where she's like rubbing her fists together. Looks like she got a fresh dose of Young serum, right? You guys know what the red drink is. Anyway, we're not going to get into that. But okay, let's go ahead and transcend. So I found this article right here, and I found that this was very interesting because I'm actually working on this documentary right now. So late rocker Chris Cornell's Beverly Hills homes list for $10 million. Let's just take a look here. I'm just interested because of the subject matter of Chris Cornell. The longtime Beverly Hills home of late Chris Cornell has hit the market for $9.85 million, the Post has learned. Cornell, who was the lead vocalist of Soundgarden and Audioslave, resided in a home with his wife Vicky Karayianis. I always have a trouble pronouncing her name. Vicky Karayianis. Vicky Karayianis, sorry, for 8 years from 2005 to 2013. The two initially purchased a 5-bedroom, 6-bathroom home for $4.22 million. Records show less than 5 years before his ultimate death. They sold it to Belgian socialite Christine Schneider de Croix for $5.1 million following their move to Miami. Schneider de Croix, who is also a singer from the Belgian pop group The Lovelettes and starred in The Real Housewives of Paris, otherwise known as I'm not going to pronounce that, lived in the home ever since. Schneider de Croix has always known for translating Michael Jackson's 1987 song, I Just Can't Stop Loving You, spanning over 5,800 square feet and situated more than 1 acre of land. The estate has been pegged for a pristine paradise. It's a pretty nice home. So is it actually him or is it her that's selling this? Surrounded by palm trees behind a private gate, the home has been renovated and upgraded with modern finishes. Yeah, this had to be lived in by her. So I don't know why they said that the Chris Cornell home was being sold. All right. So let's pivot on to some trafficking news, guys. I got some Justice Department reports. Here we go. Okay. So let's turn on the Daily Traffic logo here. Okay, so this is coming from Oregon. Is One's Purpose still on the live? One's Purpose, Joni, are you still there? This is her ministry. She's in Oregon, so this should be interesting. A Toronto man is extradited for leadership role in racketeering conspiracy, operating dozens of illegal Asian brothels in 3 countries. Portland, Oregon, a Canadian man was extradited to the United States and to be arraigned in federal court today for the leadership role in an international sex trafficking organization operating illegal Asian brothels in the United States, Canada, and Australia. Zhongtao Shen, aka Mark Chen, of Toronto, Canada, made his first appearance in federal court today in the District of Oregon and was arraigned by the U.S. Magistrate Judge John V. Acosta on charges of conspiring to use and using interstate facilities to promote, manage, establish, carry on, or facilitate a racketeering enterprise. Chen was ordered detained pending further court proceedings. According to the court documents, Chen led a criminal enterprise that recruited women primarily from China to travel to the United States and elsewhere to engage in prostitution and other sex trafficking activities. In the cities where the organization operated, a boss would oversee and manage a local brothel in a hotel or apartment complex. Customers seeking to engage in acts of illegal prostitution should call a number called Customers seeking to engage in the acts of illegal prostitution would call a number listed on www.supermatchescort.com, which, by the way, these are sites that popped up after Backpages got seized to basically sell prostitution out. So they were encouraged to call the number from that website or related websites, or send a text message, email, or encrypted internet message. The organization employed dispatchers who would receive incoming requests for dates in the trafficking world. That's slang for transactional sex, or an escort, essentially. So they call them dates from potential customers. So, for instance, if a sex worker says, oh, I have a, not if they're speaking in context of what a date means, but if they're speaking in context of like a customer, they say it's a date. So the dispatchers would coordinate and schedule dates with the women working in various brothels. Dispatchers use a computer program to schedule and track the prostitution dates. When seized by law enforcement, this computer program contained a customer database with more than 30,000 phone numbers and records from previous dates. In Oregon, Chen promoted illegal prostitution activities brothels in Portland, Tigard, and Beaverton. On November 15th, 2018, a federal grand jury in Portland returned a 2-count indictment charging Chen and 4 co-conspirators. Excuse me if I don't pronounce it right. Weixuan Zhao, aka Marco Zhao, Gonzo, China, Yan Wang, aka Sarah Wang, and Temecula, California, Xiaodan Wang, and Ting Fu, both of Beaverton, with conspiring to use or using interstate facilities to promote, manage, establish, and carry on or facilitate racketeering enterprise. So on January 15, 2019, the FBI partnered with local law enforcement agencies in more than a dozen cities across the states to conduct sting operations. Around that time, Chen was arrested by the Toronto Police Service's Human Trafficking Enforcement Team and Fugitive Squad at the request of the United States. On November 2nd, 2021, Canada's Minister of Justice approved Chen's extradition to the United States to face prosecution. This week, the U.S. Marshal Service transported Chen to Portland. All right. Continued on. The next one coming from Wisconsin. Let me see if Joni ever popped in. There we go. Uh-oh. I always forget to turn off the comment. Where'd it go? Here we go. Okay, sorry. All right, this next one coming from Wisconsin. Rock County man convicted of sex trafficking in adult, minor, and minor victims. This is from Madison, Wisconsin. Assistant Attorney General Kristen Clark and U.S. Attorney Timothy M. O'Shea today announced a conviction of Corey Hereford, aged 50, of Beloit, Wisconsin, in the Western District of Wisconsin, on charges of sex trafficking, conspiracy to commit sex trafficking, maintaining the property for the purposes of distributing and using controlled substances, and having committed sex trafficking of a minor while being a person previously convicted of a crime that required registering as a sex offender. The jury reached a verdict yesterday evening after 5 hours of deliberation following a 4-day trial in federal court in Madison, Wisconsin. The government presented evidence at the trial that Hereford targeted vulnerable young women struggling with drug addiction, one of whom was a minor, 16 years old at the time, to engage in commercial sex. He enticed the victims with access to heroin and in some instances threatened to withhold the heroin to induce withdrawal sicknesses as a means of compelling the victims to engage in prostitution for his profit. In other instances, Hereford threatens physical violence to achieve his criminal ends. The evidence demonstrated that Hereford conspired with his co-defendant, Toniel Partee, 30, of Janesville, Wisconsin, to recruit victims and compel their commercial sex work. Partee pled guilty to conspiracy to commit sex trafficking in July of 2021. Other evidence at the trial showed that Hereford maintained a home in South Franklin Street in Janesville for the purposes of distributing and using controlled substances, specifically heroin and cocaine. Corey Hereford was previously convicted of second-degree sexual assault of a child in the state of Wisconsin, which required him to register as a sex offender. Okay, let me just pause here and just say that this is, again, this becomes frequent because we see it frequent in stories that these traffickers and pimps, they use the most addictive substances to keep these girls or these victims reeled in. And the idea behind that is that, you know, when they get them addicted to these substances, or if by their definition as a grand prize, if they find the victims that are already addicted, all they have to do is, okay, well, here's the substance. I got your drugs. Go do what I tell you to do. So it's like transactional sex, and then you get the goods. So, they basically live off of this and, basic necessities if the trafficker and pimp will provide that, which most of the time they will do that. They'll to keep them reeled in, they'll keep them fed and keep their habit going. So it says, this defendant preyed on vulnerable members of our society, young women and girls addicted to drugs, said Assistant Attorney General Kristen Clark of the Justice Department Civil Rights Division, using their addictions to lure them deeper into the world of drugs and prostitution. He trafficked these victims for his own greed without regard to their age, their pain, or their safety. He will continue to enforce our human trafficking laws to restore freedom and dignity to victims of the crime. Mr. Hereford targeted and exploited young and vulnerable women, forcing them into commercial sex to generate an income for him. I commend the trial team, investigators, and victim advocates for their commitment and diligence, said U.S. Attorney Timothy O'Shea of the Western District of Wisconsin. These guilty verdicts show that my office and Wisconsin law enforcement are united against sex trafficking. All right. Good deal. Good to see people being put away for that. All right, next one coming from Louisiana. I'm sorry, not Louisiana, Mississippi. Excuse me. Why does it say Louisiana? Oh, it's a Louisiana man. Okay. So Mississippi, Southern District of Mississippi, Louisiana man sentenced for more than 12 years in federal custody and a lifetime of federal supervised release for attempted enticement of a minor. A Greensburg, Louisiana man was sentenced today at 152 months in prison for attempted enticement of a minor following his arrest in Marion County human trafficking operation, announced U.S. Attorney Darren J. LaMarca and Special Agent in Charge David Denton of Homeland Security Investigations in New Orleans. Brandon Brumfield, 25 years old, very young, was sentenced today by U.S. District Judge Taylor B. McNeil. Brumfield's sentence also included a special assessment of $5,000 under the Justice for Victims in Trafficking Act and a lifetime term of supervised release following his release from confinement. He will also have to register as an offender. According to court documents, during an operation being conducted by law enforcement in Marion County in December of 2020, Brumfield engaged with an undercover online chatter posing as a 14-year-old on the online dating website Plenty of Fish. While chat, and by the way, that's a free dating app. I know because I was on there like a long ass time ago. Long. But I will never do dating apps ever again. Ever. There's a lot of creepers on there. It's just a bad time. But by the way, just so you're aware, that's a dating app. While chatting, Brumfield expressed his desire to have sex with the 14-year-old and stated that he would drive to Columbia, Mississippi from Greensburg, Louisiana to do so. Upon arrival in Columbia, Brumfield was arrested by law enforcement with condoms in his vehicle. Brumfield subsequently admitted to law enforcement that it was his intent to have sex with the 14-year-old he had met on Plenty of Fish. That's why it's important to be careful, guys. Be careful if you're adults, if you're on dating apps, especially if you're female. I mean, males can get duped. I mean, males can get duped too. But there's a lot of swindlers out there. Tinder swindlers, pimp swindlers, all types. All right, this next one coming from Pennsylvania. This is probably the most important story because I think the hotels actually need to get a lot more accountability. But this is actually bringing a general manager of a hotel to justice. All right. Coming from Pennsylvania. The United States Attorney's Office for the Middle District of Pennsylvania announced that on February 23rd, 2022, Faisal Behimani, age 45 of Bartonsville, Pennsylvania, was sentenced to 180 months imprisonment by U.S. District Judge Malaki Menyon for sex trafficking and drug trafficking charges. Behimani's sentencing follows a 2-week jury trial in Scranton in October of 2020, which concluded with the jury returning guilty verdicts against Behimani and co-defendant Nasim Hassam, along with 2 hotel companies, Sri Sai Inc., a Pennsylvania corporation, at the Pocono Plaza Inn Hotel, formerly known as Quality Inn, located in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. Okay, so this is a story. According to United States District Attorney, I'm sorry, not the District Attorney, the United States Attorney, John C. Gerganis, Sri Sai Inc., which is the parent company to this hotel, a company that owned and operated the Howard Johnson Hotel located in Bartonsville, and Faisal Behimani, the general manager of that hotel, were both convicted of sex trafficking by force, fraud, and coercion, and aiding and abetting the same sex trafficking conspiracy, as well as drug trafficking conspiracy and managing a drug-related premises. The jury also found the Pocono Plaza Inn guilty of managing a drug-related premises, and Nazim Hassam, part owner and vice president of Sri Sai Inc., and managing shareholder of both hotels, guilty of drug trafficking conspiracy and 2 counts of managing a drug-related premises. These convictions marked the culmination of a 6-year joint investigation into sex trafficking, drug trafficking, and violent crime in Monroe County by the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force. This case began in 2014 with the FBI investigation into the Black Pea Stone Gang, a set of the Bloods that was responsible for gun violence and drug trafficking in Monroe County at the time. Local agencies, including the Stroud Area Regional Police Department and the Monroe County District Attorney's Office, joined the effort early on and eventually expanded beyond the Pea Stones too, which is the gang, to uncover more widespread sex and drug trafficking in Monroe County. The evidence at trial, presented through more than 35 witnesses and over 150 exhibits, established that the Howard Johnson Hotel in Bartonsville was a safe haven for criminal activity between 2011 and 2019. Behimani, as a manager, made rooms available for sex traffickers and drug dealers at the time, took payment for the hotel directly from the proceeds of criminal activity, which, again, he is the manager. And again, a lot of these managers, these hotel managers, I've seen it where I think this was back in 2019 when I first started the Daily Traffic. I saw a story where the Red Roof Inn was getting sued because they were aiding and abetting sex trafficking. So these are very likely scenarios that are happening much more often. We just don't have light to it. But basically, the management or the staff, they'll make a deal with the trafficker or the pimp to, allow that type of activity at their hotel. They'll book hotels for just a couple hours or what have you. There was one case where the hotel management was so embedded in it, they would even have policies about, like, you can't get refunds within the first few minutes of your booking, or like within the first hour of your booking, like really sick stuff like this. So this stuff actually happens a lot more often than we think. So where was I? Several admitted sex traffickers testified in trial. explaining how they use these various methods to compel women to sell sex and turn over all of the proceeds. Multiple survivors also testified that they were required to follow the traffickers' rules and were forced to rely entirely on the traffickers for food, clothing, even hygiene products. And they were often pushed for violations with violence, including sexual assault. Behemani was closely associated with several of these traffickers and knew of the methods. See, this is what I told you. Knew of several of the methods used to compel the victims to have sex for money. Other employees at the hotel knew as well that the evidence showed at least 2 other employees engaged with sex with victims, including co-defendant Nazim Hassam. Behemani also warned sex traffickers and drug dealers when the law enforcement were present at the hotel, including during the manhunt for Eric Frayne in 2014. Several admitted sex traffickers and drug dealers testified in successfully evading detection by police thanks to warnings from Behemani. So Behemani basically tipped off these traffickers, hey, the police is here or they're on their way, don't steer clear. So this was a real POS, this guy. The hotel allowed known criminals to check under assumed names or even street names, and Behemani and Hassam both took steps to obstruct police efforts to locate the suspects. And because they would be messing with their money too. They're in bed with these traffickers. So if these traffickers didn't make money, they wouldn't make money. And all 40 defendants have been convicted in federal court as a result of this investigation, many of whom trafficked women and drugs in Bartonsville, Howard Johnson, and Pocono Plaza Inn. Other defendants have been charged with and convicted in state courts. The investigation successfully dismantled the P-Stones, which is the gang, as well as the second gang, the Brick City Brims, and disrupted the activities of 2 or more, the Bloodstone Villains and the Bloodhound Brims. Investigators seized multiple kilograms of heroin, cocaine, as well as quantities of fentanyl, cocaine-based crack, and methamphetamine, marijuana, and MDMA, Molly, and took at least 10 illegal firearms off the streets. This prosecution is part of an extensive investigation by the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force. It is a joint federal, state, and local cooperative approach to combat drug trafficking and its nation's primary tool for disrupting and dismantling major drug trafficking organizations, targeting national and regional level drug trafficking organizations, and coordinating with necessary law enforcement entities and resources to disrupt and dismantle the targeted criminal organization and seize their assets, as it should be done. So, that was a lot. That was a lot, but that is happening more often than we think. Jeffrey says, don't forget the motel. Some are truly holes in the wall. Very, very seedy. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Hotels are wild, says Tank Darla. Most hotel managers are into sex trafficking. There was a case in Connecticut last year at the hotel that was a crazy story. Yeah, I believe it. Most city council, listen to this. This is a good point. Jeffrey says most city councils and mayors and police are corrupt in the most cities and towns, and most are in groups like Skull and Bones, etc. And they use gangs and biker. So even with with the secret societies and all that, some of them are just corrupt and they just want money, so they get paid off. For instance, like there's certain mayors out there that got campaign donations to their mayoral race by strip clubs. And they're sitting mayors right now. True story. He says, in my city of Bridgeport, Connecticut, our mayor went into federal prison for corruption. And guess what? He was released as is mayor again, and see the corruption. The citizens in my city are corrupt too. Oh, absolutely. What's up, Mr. Nice One? Thank you for joining in from H-Town. So yeah, this is actually really crazy. Really, really crazy. So anyway, guys, with that being said, I appreciate you guys watching. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for tuning in to Nightly with Natalie, Unravel with Natalie Denise, both segments of Unravel with Natalie. I'm sorry, the Daily Traffic, Nightly with Natalie, both segments of Unravel with Natalie Denise. I appreciate you all so much. I will catch you guys tomorrow in tomorrow's episode. Who knows what's going to pop off tomorrow, right? I mean, who knows anymore? Who knows anymore? I'll talk to you guys in tomorrow's episode. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Unravel with Natalie Denise. Please give this podcast 5 stars.